With the addition of Ziyiqian, Prince Huoxing, and Yao Qingtong, the number of Outer Palace students standing outside the Divine Power Hall reached 12, and each of them was a top genius elite. Boom! When the first rays of sunlight fell on the top of the Divine Power Temple, the heavy palace door slowly opened. A silver-robed old woman and a gold-robed old man walked out of the gate and stood on the 9-story white stone steps, looking down at the 12 young warriors below. The silver-robed old woman looked like she was 80 or 90 years old, hunched over, holding a black iron cane, and her eyebrows and hair were snow-white, giving people an unusually old feeling. She is one of the 2 vice presidents of the West Academy, the deputy head of King Hua. King Hua's voice was very loud, and he said, "The old body is the deputy hall master of the West Courtyard, King Hua. I believe that the older generation of students already know each other. The new batch of students can be regarded as acquaintances now. According to the rules, the Divine Power Hall is opened once a month, and only the first freshman of each year can enter the Divine Power Hall for an hour of cultivation. This year is slightly different. The freshmen of the West Courtyard have produced 4 talents with amazing talents, so all 4 of them can enter the Divine Power Hall to cultivate. In addition, I would like to introduce to you a golden-robed elder from the inner palace, Elder Yu Jingchan." All the students looked at the old man in the golden robe in awe, bowed and saluted, and said in unison, "Meet Elder Yu Jingchan." In the West Courtyard, only the master of the West Courtyard can wear a golden robe. This Elder Yu Jingchan from the inner palace also wore a golden robe, indicating that his status was the same level as that of the master of the Western Courtyard. Elder Yu Jingchan's face had a kind smile on his face, and he said, "The Western Courtyard is very good. There are many talents, especially this year. 4 Tianjiao who have passed the first level of the 3rd layer of the Martial Pagoda were born at the same time. This year, the West Courtyard is ranked 2nd among the freshmen of the 4 outer courtyards." The face of the deputy head of King Hua also showed a smile of satisfaction. In the past, the freshmen of the West Courtyard were at the bottom almost every year, but this year, there were a series of digital geniuses, making the freshmen of the West Courtyard rank 2nd. As the deputy hall master of the West Courtyard, her face is naturally very bright. Prince Huoxing straightened his chest, arched his hand slightly, and said with a smile, "It is our honor to be able to become a student of the outer palace of the Martial City Academy." Elder Yu Jingchan glanced at Prince Huoxing, smiled faintly, and said, "Everyone may not know much about the old man, so the old man will introduce himself first. The old man is not a warrior, but a formation mage." The deputy courtyard master of King Hua added, "Elder Yu Jingchan is the chief formation mage of the inner palace, and his spiritual power has reached the 39th rank, and in the Martial City Academy, he is the person with the strongest spiritual power." The students below all showed shocked expressions, and they actually cultivated their spiritual power to the 39th level, which was also too powerful, so they could only look up. Elder Yu Jingchan said, "The cultivation of the Divine Power Hall is to allow you to improve your spiritual power. For ordinary martial artists, cultivating spiritual power is a waste of time and a stupid act. But for a true genius, it is necessary to cultivate spiritual power at the same time. For example, you are the real top geniuses, so you have to cultivate spiritual power. Can anyone tell me why the Academy wants you to cultivate your spiritual power?" The oldest student, Mu Tuazi, took a step forward and said, "The cultivation speed of a genius is fast. You can spend time on cultivating spiritual power. As long as your spiritual power is strong, you can specialize in formations, alchemy, refining weapons, and imperial beasts." Yu Jingchan shook his head slightly, dissatisfied with this answer, and said, "You just spent too much time on cultivating spiritual power, and you studied too much, so you haven't broken through to the Earth Extreme Realm until now." Mu Tuazi was very ashamed and retreated. Huang Yanchen took a step forward, his posture was straight, very cold, and said, "Cultivating spiritual power is to be able to break through to the heavenly extreme realm more easily in the future, and even impact the half-saint realm." Elder Yu Jingchan nodded lightly and said approvingly, "That's right. The cultivation before the heavenly extreme realm had little to do with spiritual power. However, if you want to reach the heavenly extreme realm, there is a threshold, and that is that your spiritual power must reach the 20th order. Many martial artists only realized the importance of spiritual power when they reached the great perfection of the earth extreme realm, and only then did they begin to cultivate spiritual power. But at that time, it was already too late, and it would take 10 times more time than others to be able to cultivate spiritual power to the 20th order, and even on the day of old age, it would not be possible to cultivate spiritual power to the 20th order. In addition, the stronger the spiritual power, the faster the cultivation speed will be when you are in the heavenly extreme realm. Many years ago, the Martial City Academy Palace conducted an experiment, and the two were both top geniuses of their 30s, providing them with the same cultivation resources and the same cultivation environment. The only difference is that one of the geniuses' spiritual power is the 20th order, and the other genius's spiritual power is the 30th order. That genius of the 20th order of spiritual power spent 5 years to break through to the middle stage of the heavenly extreme realm. It took another 15 years to break through to the late stage of the heavenly extreme realm. Guess how much time that genius with a spiritual power of the 30th order spent? Yu Chi Tienkong said, "The further you go in your cultivation, the more difficult it will be to break through the realm. I guess that it would take at least 15 years for that genius with a spiritual power of the 30th order to break through from the early stage of the heavenly extreme realm to the late stage of the heavenly extreme realm." Elder Yu Jingchan shook his head gently. Xueling said, "It will take at least 10 years, right?" Elder Yu Jing said, "That genius with a spiritual power of the 30th order spent 2 years to break through to the middle stage of the heavenly extreme realm, and another 3 years to break through to the late stage of the heavenly extreme realm, a total of only 5 years. Boom! The students present were all stunned. They are also all top geniuses who have reached the heavenly extreme realm at the age of 30, but one took 20 years, and the other only took 5 years, and the gap is too big. It is conceivable that the gap between them will surely widen in the future." At this moment, everyone present realized the importance of cultivating spiritual power, because they were geniuses and had to think about their future path. Those ordinary students didn't have to think about it, because they might not even be able to reach the heavenly extreme realm, let alone think about the cultivation path after the heavenly extreme realm. Prince Huoxing became excited, because he was not only a martial artist, but also a genius beast master, who had cultivated spiritual power since he was a child, and now his spiritual power had reached the 17th order. Prince Huoxing glanced at Zhang Ruogan and showed a contemptuous smile, as if to say, "What about high talent? Your spiritual power is far inferior to mine, and I will only go further than you in the future cultivation path." Elder Yu Jing said, "Now that everyone understands the importance of spiritual power, how many people know how spiritual power can help you now?" This time, everyone was silent. "Didn't you just say that your spiritual power must reach the heavenly extreme realm in order to give full play to your advantages? Could it be that spiritual power is also helpful for low-level martial artists? What helps? Refining? Alchemy? Beasts?" Obviously, Elder Yu Jingchan was not referring to these, but to martial arts. Zhang Ruogan looked at the other students, and seeing that everyone didn't know, he pondered for a moment, took a step forward, and said, "The students feel that the stronger the spiritual power, the earlier they can comprehend the advanced realm of Kendo than the martial artists of the same realm." Elder Yu Jingzhen, his eyes lit up, he stared at Zhang Ruogan and said, "What's your name?" "Zhang Ruogan." Zhang Ruogan said. Elder Yu Jingchan showed a look of sudden realization, and laughed. "Before coming to the west courtyard, your courtyard master kept mentioning you in front of the old man, saying that you were a rare genius in the west courtyard in 100 years, and praised you to the sky. After coming to the west courtyard, your courtyard master deliberately told the old man that you have comprehended the realm of the sword to go to the high level at will, and you have been in front of me for most of the day." Originally, the old man didn't believe his words, but now after seeing you, the old man believes a little. "Zhang Ruogan, tell the old man, how many steps of your spiritual power have you reached?" Elder Yu Jingchan's spiritual power was so strong, before, he integrated his spiritual power into his eyes, and when he stared at it, the 11 students below did not dare to look at him, and immediately lowered their proud heads. Only Zhang Ruogan is the only one, under his eyes, he is still calm and composed. At that time, he felt that this young man was not simple, and after learning Zhang Ruogan's name, he was no longer surprised. A young man who can cultivate to the advanced level of the sword at the age of 16, how can his spiritual power be weak? In fact, Zhang Ruogan didn't know how many levels of his current spiritual power had reached, only that in his previous life, he had already reached the 32nd level. In this life, he opened the divine martial mark of time and space, and with the resonance of the gods caused by the supreme extreme realm that had reached the yellow extreme realm, he felt that his spiritual power had improved a lot. As for how many steps he had reached, he didn't know very well, and he only knew when he tested it. Of course, Zhang Ruogan would not tell everyone that his spiritual power had reached more than the 30th order, and seeing that everyone was staring at him, he said in hiding, "Elder, I don't know how many levels of spiritual power I have, I estimate that there should be 25 steps." When Zhang Ruogan finished saying this, except for Elder Yu Jingchan, no one believed it at all. How old is he? How can he possibly cultivate his spiritual power to the 25th order? Can you die if you don't brag? Huang Yanshan's starry eyes glared at Zhang Ruogan fiercely. Huang Yanshan has entered the Divine Power Hall and cultivated dozens of times, and until now, his spiritual power has only reached the 20th level. How could she believe that Zhang Ruogan's spiritual power had reached the 25th order? Prince Huoxing didn't believe it even more, so he smiled and said, "Zhang Ruogan, anyone can talk big. I dare to say that my spiritual power has reached the 30th level, but who believes it? If you don't believe it, forget it." Zhang Ruogan looked very casual. Since everyone didn't believe it, he didn't bother to explain. In his opinion, this is not a big deal. Moreover, he didn't really want everyone to know his true mental strength. He's too good and he's only going to provoke more killers. Hearing Zhang Ruogan's words, Prince Huoxing felt even more that Zhang Ruogan was bragging. In that case, why not take this opportunity to make him lose face in front of everyone? Prince Huoxing clasped his hands into fists, bowed to Elder Yu Jingchan, and said with a smile, "Elder, the students propose that before entering the Divine Power Hall, all the students present should take a mental power test. It's clear who is a genius and who is a mediocre." Elder Yu Jingchan agreed with Prince Huoxing's proposal, and he also wanted to take this opportunity to see how strong the young Tianjiao of the Western Courtyard was. Soon, the divine measuring stone was brought up, placed on the iron frame, and stood in front of the door of the Divine Power Temple. The Deputy Academy Master of King Hua looked at the 12 young students below and said, "This time you must go all out in the mental power test. Only by understanding the strength of your spiritual power, Elder Yu Jing can better guide you in your cultivation in spiritual power." Now, in order of H, the mental power is measured in order. Tuo Muzi, you are the oldest, you come to test first. Good. Tuo Muzi is very confident in the strength of his spiritual power. You must know that he became a disciple of the Outer Palace of the West Courtyard with the first result of new students 9 years ago, and he has 12 opportunities to enter the Divine Power Hall to cultivate spiritual power every year. 9 years has allowed his mental power to reach a fairly high level. Tuo Muzi's body was strong, and his whole body was covered with bronze muscles, and he walked in front of the God measuring stone and pressed his palm on the surface of the God measuring stone. Wow! On the surface of the divine measuring stone, circles of light patterns appeared. 1 layer of light pattern, 2 layers of light pattern, 3 layers of light pattern, and finally, the light pattern reaches 24 layers before stopping. Tuo Muzi wiped the beads of sweat from his forehead, looked at his results, was very satisfied, and let out a hearty laugh. He is worthy of being a senior brother, and his mental strength is so strong. It is said that senior brother is also a cultivator and a beast master, and he is both a second-grade refiner and a second-grade beast master, with strong spiritual power, but it is different. Elder Yu Jing also nodded lightly and said, Being able to cultivate spiritual power to the 24th order before the age of 30 is already quite remarkable. If you calm down and spend all your energy on refining weapons or beasts, you will definitely be able to become a powerful refiner or beast master in the future. Elder Yu Jingchen's words seemed to be praising Tuo Muzi, and at the same time, he was also severely criticizing him. Tuo Muzi's talent is very high, it is definitely obvious to all. If he concentrates on cultivating martial arts, he will definitely reach the extreme realm of the earth long ago. If he specialized in cultivating weapons, he would definitely have reached the level of a third-grade refiner. If he specialized in cultivating beasts, he would definitely have reached the level of a third-grade beast master. However, Tuo Muzi's talent in the three aspects is very high, and he wants to cultivate in each of them, so he leads to the fact that all three aspects are not high or low. Tuo Muzi naturally understood Elder Yu Jingchen's accusation, so he humbly asked for advice. May I ask, Elder, which path should students take in the future? Elder Yu Jing said, the road is under your feet, and how you choose it is up to you. The old man can only give you some advice. If you plan to continue to cultivate martial arts in the future, then you must give up refining weapons and imperial beasts. You can only treat them as hobbies, but you must not spend too much energy. If that's the case, with your talent, at the beginning of next year, the Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam opened by the Inner Palace should have a chance to break through to the Earth Extreme Realm and become a disciple of the Inner Palace. Hearing the Intermediate Relics Exploration exam, Tuo Muzi's eyes lit up. Not only Tuo Muzi, but also Huang Yanchen, Duan Jupiter Spirit, and a few other old students who had been in the Wuxi School Palace for several years, all of them were excited. Finally waited for the news of the Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam. Elder Yu Jingchen said again, if you want to take the path of refining weapons or beasts, with your 24th order spiritual power, you are fully qualified to enter the Inner Palace to cultivate. I can introduce you to an elder refiner as a teacher, or an elder of the beast master as a teacher. To Muzi, how are you going to choose? Tuo Muzi clenched his fists as if he had already made a decision, and said with a smile, Elder Hui, I have always wanted to become a martial arts powerhouse. If I want to break through to the Earth Extreme Realm, 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to break through to the Earth Extreme Realm. For the past 4 years, the reason why I have been researching imperial beasts and refining weapons is because I am waiting for next year's Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam. Since the Academy Palace will open the mid-level ruins at the beginning of next year, of course I have to choose the martial arts path and enter the mid-level ruins in the most prosperous state. Elder Yu Jingchen was slightly surprised, with a crying and laughing expression on his face, and said, you are reluctant to break through the Earth Extreme Realm for a long time, just because you want to wait for next year's Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam. That's right. Tuo Muzi said. It is very difficult to break through the Extreme Realm, so the Wuxi Academy Palace holds a primary ruin exploration exam every 2 years. The so-called Elementary Ruins Exploration Test is actually a college entrance exam. Only students who have reached the great perfection of the Xian Extreme Realm are eligible to participate. Among the primary ruins, students can not only get a large number of precious cultivation resources, but also get cruel training, and many students who are stuck in the great perfection of the Suanji realm can break through the shackles through this experience, reach the Earth Extreme Realm, and become the Inner Palace Academy. The Elementary Ruins Exploration exam is held every 2 years, and only martial artists of the great perfection of the Suanji realm can participate. However, the Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam is held once every 10 years, and only the top 10 students of the 4 major academies can take it, so the opportunity is more precious and the benefits are more. Therefore, almost all of the top geniuses of the 4 major courtyards were deliberately suppressing their cultivation, that is, waiting for the Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam. Zhang Ruogan glanced at Huang Yanchen and Duan Muxingling, and thought to himself, no wonder the West Courtyard has been the first freshman in the past 10 years, and only one of them has broken through the Earth Pole realm to go to the Inner Courtyard for further study. It turns out that everyone else is waiting for the Intermediate Ruins Exploration exam. Zhang Ruogan is also thinking about whether he should fight for a place. After all, If he misses this opportunity, he will have to wait for another 10 years. Tuo Muzi retreated, and the second student to test his spiritual power was the first freshman 7 years ago, named Zhu Hailan, who was 26 years old this year. Zhu Hailan, 18th Order of Spiritual Power. Zhu Hailan is still quite satisfied with his spiritual power, although it is not as good as Tuo Muzi, but it is already stronger than the spiritual power of many Earth Extreme Realm martial artists. The third student to test his mental strength was the freshman 6 years ago, named Hualien, who was 24 years old this year. Hualien, 16th Order of Spiritual Power. The fourth student to test his mental strength was the first freshman 2 years ago, Wei Qi Tiankong, who is 23 years old this year. Yu Qi Tiankong, the 12th Order of Spiritual Power. For ordinary martial artists, their spiritual power is only about the 10th order. Wei Qi Tiankong has only been in the Wuxi Academy for 2 years, and he only cultivated his spiritual power 2 years ago, and his current results are already very good. The fifth student to test his mental power was the first freshman a year ago, Xueling, who is 22 years old this year. Xueling, 12th Order of Spiritual Power. The sixth student to test her mental power was Ziyiqian, who was 22 years old this year. After all, Ziyiqian is not a child of the nobility, she has not had so many cultivation resources since she was a child, and being able to reach her current cultivation at the age of 22 is already quite remarkable among poor martial artists. If she wants to cultivate resources, she must kill people to make money, and spend her own money to buy pills, martial arts, cheats, and weapons. Ziyiqian, 16th Order of Spiritual Power. When Elder Yu Jing chanted Ziyiqian's spiritual strength, all the students below showed a trace of surprise. It is indeed an incredible thing that a freshman's spiritual power can reach the 16th order. The seventh student to test his mental power was the first freshman 5 years ago, Huang Yanchen, who is 21 years old this year. Yellow Smoke and Dust, 21st Order of Spiritual Power. Huang Yanchen looked at his results, a smile appeared on his face. He didn't expect that his spiritual power had improved by another level recently. Don't underestimate the first order. After the spiritual power reaches the 15th order, it is quite difficult to improve each level. The eighth student to test his mental power was Prince Huoxing, who was 21 years old this year. Huoxing, 17th Order of Spiritual Power. Elder Yu Jingchan glanced at Prince Huoxing with great satisfaction, and sighed in his heart, this year's freshmen in the West Courtyard are really powerful, and their spiritual power is so strong. Prince Huoxing was not very satisfied. Originally he planned to pass the mental power test and become a blockbuster, but Huang Yanchen in front of him was too dazzling, completely comparing him to him. Is also 21 years old, but Huang Yanchen's spiritual power has reached the 21st order, 4 orders higher than him. What else could he be proud of? The ninth student to test his mental power was Yao Qingtong, who is 19 years old this year. Yao Qingtong, 15th Order of Spiritual Power. At this moment, the most uncomfortable people are Wei Qi Tiankong and Xueling, who are obviously old students, but they are compared to the new students. It's just that the spiritual power of one freshman is stronger than theirs, but the spiritual power of 3 freshmen is stronger than them at the same time. How can this make them embarrassed? The 10th student to test his spiritual power was the freshman 3 years ago, Duan Jupiter Ling, who was 18 years old this year. Duan Jupiter Spirit, Spiritual Power 20 Order. Elder Yu Jingchan said with a smile. The 11th student to test his mental power was the first freshman 4 years ago, Luo Shuiyan, who is 17 years old this year. Luo Shuiyan, it's time for you to test your mental power. Elder Yu Jingchan said with a smile. Luo Shuiyan's origin is not simple, she is the descendant of Luo Su, the first day of the West Courtyard in the past 460 years. 4 years ago, she was only 13 years old, and she became the first freshman in the West Courtyard, shocking the entire Wuxi School Palace. The Luo family is a very powerful family, and Luo Shuiyan has no need to come to the West Courtyard to cultivate, but she is extremely proud and wants to surpass her ancestor Luosu. Therefore, she came to the west courtyard to follow the path that her ancestor Luosu had walked, and she also wanted to become a powerful figure like her ancestor. Although Luo Shuyan was only 17 years old, he was recognized as the first person in the Western Academy, and even Tuo Muzi, Huang Yanchen, and Duan Mu Xingling were far from her opponents. Zhang Ruogan was also full of curiosity about this Tianzi number 1, and looked at Luo Shuyan. Luo Shuyan was wearing an ordinary white robe, without any decoration on his body, and he looked very simple. If she's standing in the crowd, you won't even notice her. But once you notice her, you will definitely be attracted by her beauty and temperament, and you can only sigh in your heart that such a woman does not belong to the world at all, just like a fairy who descends to the earth. Zhang Ruogan couldn't find a flaw on her body, it was impeccable, and she sighed in her heart, she was really a peerless and independent beauty, neither as cold as Huang Yanchen, nor as eccentric as Duan Jupiter Spirit. It was an indifferent temperament that did not eat the fireworks of the world, which made people only look at it from a distance, not close. Under the gaze of everyone, Luo Shuyan walked in front of the divine measuring stone, stretched out a slender jade hand, and pressed it on the surface of the divine measuring stone. Wow! In an instant, circles of light appeared, emitting brighter and brighter brilliance, and finally reached 26 circles. The students below, almost all of whom were petrified, were stunned. At the age of 17, his spiritual power has reached the 26th level. Even though Elder Yu Jingchan had been mentally prepared for a long time, he was still shocked. He had been cultivating spiritual power for 80 years, and he had only reached the 39th rank until now, and there were hardly many people in the 36 counties of the Heavenly Demon Ridge who were stronger than him. Today's young students are getting stronger from generation to generation, and we are all getting old. King Hua's deputy courtyard master sighed. Duan Mu Xingling looked a little unhappy, stared at Luo Shuyan, and said in a low voice, Originally, her and Huang Yanchen's spiritual power were above the 20th order, which was quite good, but compared to Luo Shuyan, it was suddenly a big difference. The talents of the 3 female devils are indeed significantly higher than the others, and all of them became the first freshmen before the age of 16. Huang Yanchen is 16 years old, Duan Jupiter Ling is 15 years old, and Luo Shuyan is 13 years old. Zhang Ruogan's heart moved, and he seemed to understand something. Didn't he just become the first freshman at the age of 16, so he was accepted by them and became the first yellow character of the Dragon Martial Palace? That's probably why. Everyone's eyes were on Zhang Ruogan, and now he was the only one who had not yet been tested by the Divine Stone. Prince Huoxing glanced at Zhang Ruogan and said with a smile, didn't someone say that his spiritual power had reached the 25th order before? Why didn't he test it? Xueling snorted coldly and said, what he brags about, you actually believe it? Do you think that his talent can be compared to senior sister Luo? Prince Huoxing smiled, that's not necessarily, the 9th prince is a genius of the heavenly vertical, I believe that his spiritual power must far surpass everyone else, definitely above the 25th order. Zhang Ruogan didn't bother to pay attention to the cynicism of these people, and walked directly towards the divine measuring stone, pressing his palm on the surface of the divine measuring stone. At this moment, everyone's eyes were all staring towards the god measuring stone. Although everyone didn't believe that his spiritual power could reach the 25th order, he was able to comprehend the high-level realm of the sword walking with his heart, and his spiritual power was definitely not low, and it was estimated that he could reach about the 20th order. This is the highest evaluation of Zhang Ruogan by everyone. Wow! The light streaks on the surface of the divine stone lit up. 1, 2, 3. 10 laps, 11 laps. 18 laps, 19 laps, 20 laps. When the light patterns on the divine measuring stone reached 20 circles, the faces of Prince Huoxing, Xueling, and Yu Qi Tiankong all turned pale, and they couldn't believe their eyes. The light patterns on the divine measuring stone have not disappeared, and they continue to grow. 21 laps, 22 laps, 23 laps, 24 laps. Zhang Ruogan didn't want to be in the limelight, if his spiritual power surpassed Luo Shuyan, he didn't know how much trouble he would cause. In that case, then take it when you see it. When the light pattern on the divine measuring stone reached 25 circles, Zhang Ruoken immediately withdrew his palm, and then walked downward. Actually, it's really up to the 25th order. Huang Yanchen pursed his red lips tightly, and his eyes staring at Zhang Ruoken became quite complicated. It's the same as Luo Shuyan, it's hateful, it's so hateful. Duan Mu Xingling saw Zhang Ruoken walking past him, so he quickly stepped out and stepped on Zhang Ruoken's upper with a hard kick. Zhang Ruoken didn't expect Duan Mu Xingling to be so ruthless, his instep hurt, and he stared at Duan Mu Xingling, his eyes seemed to say, "Sick. What are you stepping on me for?" Duan Mu Xingling clasped his hands in front of his chest, his snow-white chin was slightly upturned, and he looked very happy. It's really amazing, I almost caught up with Luo Shuyan. The deputy head of King Hua stared at Zhang Ruoken, feeling quite incredible, and secretly thought in his heart that he must focus on cultivating Zhang Ruoken in the future. The deputy courtyard master of King Hua smiled and said, "Elder Yu Jingchan, Zhang Ruoken and Luo Shuyan's attainments in spiritual power can also rank in the top 10 in the history of the Heavenly Demon Ridge Martial City School Palace, right?" Elder Yu Jingchan nodded and said with a smile, "Luo Shuyan's attainments in spiritual power are enough to rank third among all the geniuses in the history of the Heavenly Demon Ridge Martial City Academy, and Zhang Ruoken can rank fourth." Duan Mu Xingling asked, "Who was the first day of spiritual power in the history of the Heavenly Demon Ridge Martial City Academy? And who is the second?" Elder Yu Jingchan said, "The first-ranked student, at the age of 16, had reached the 28th level of spiritual power. However, he is a refiner, and his major is spiritual power, and the strength of spiritual power is naturally not comparable to that of a martial artist who majored in martial arts. The second-ranked student is Senior Luo Su. When he was 16 years old, his spiritual power had reached the 27th order, which was the first among martial arts cultivators, and no one has been able to surpass it so far." Just when everyone was still shocked by the strength of Zhang Ruoken and Luo Shuyan's spiritual power, Luo Shuyan said a word, and one stone stirred up 1,000 waves. Luo Shuyan's gaze stared at Zhang Ruoken and said, "Senior brother, you didn't use all your strength, the 25th order, it's not your true strength." Zhang Ruoken's heart was slightly surprised, she actually saw it. 25th order of spiritual power, isn't it his true strength? Huang Yanchen was a little incredulous, in her opinion, it was quite exaggerated for her spiritual power to reach the 25th order. Could it be that Zhang Ruoken's spiritual power is more than the 25th order? Was exposed in front of him, Zhang Ruoken was also a little embarrassed, and said with a smile, "Senior sister Luo is really as wise as a torch, and she can't hide it from you. I do have reservations, but I don't have to show them." Luo Shui said lightly, "Are you afraid of overshadowing me? You don't have to worry, if your talent is really high, I will admire you even more." Hearing Luo Shuyan say the word admiration, even the deputy head of King Hua was slightly startled, and kept glancing at Zhang Ruoken. No one knows the dignity of Luo Shuyan's identity better than the deputy head of King Hua. If Zhang Ruoken can really show outstanding talent, he will be appreciated by Luo Shuyan. As long as Luo Shuyan said a word, Zhang Ruoken's future is definitely open. The deputy head of King Hua said solemnly, "Zhang Ruoken, since you have talent, you should show it. Wuxi Academy Palace is a place for you to show your talents, and only true geniuses can be cultivated more and better. If you can surpass the first day of spiritual power in the history of Heavenly Demon Ridge, I will immediately apply to the Academy Palace for 10 drops of half-holy true liquid for you." Prince Huoxing, Yu Qi Tiankong, Xueling, and others originally wanted to see Zhang Ruoken lose face, but now, they feel that they are the clown who jumps off the beam and lose face. If Zhang Ruoken's spiritual power really surpassed that one in history on the first day of spiritual power, he would definitely be appreciated by Luo Shuyan and valued by the top management of the Academy C. When the time comes, he will really soar into the sky. 10 drops of half-saint true liquid is too important to Zhang Ruoken. For the sake of 10 drops of half-saint true liquid, Zhang Ruoken walked in front of the divine measuring stone again. As he raised his palm, he turned around and asked, "Vice Courtyard Master, can you really apply for 10 drops of half-saint true liquid?" The deputy courtyard master of King Hua had a rush to beat Zhang Ruoken. It turned out that he was willing to show his true spiritual strength for 10 drops of half-saint true liquid. What a bastard boy! King Hua's deputy courtyard master snorted coldly and said, "Don't worry, as long as your talent is really high, the Academy Palace will definitely not treat you badly." Okay. Zhang Ruoken nodded and pressed his palm on the divine measuring stone. Wow! The light pattern on the divine stone lit up again, and soon reached 20 circles, and then it kept flashing again, reaching 25 circles. After 25 laps, the growth rate of the light pattern slows down, and after a short pause, it is the 26th lap, followed by the 27th lap. Zhang Ruoken naturally couldn't show all his spiritual power, although the higher his spiritual power, the more resources he get, and the better the cultivation he gets, but if his spiritual power really surpasses the 30th order, it will definitely not be a good thing for him, but a disaster. This time, Zhang Ruoken learned smartly, and deliberately pretended to be very difficult, making him sweat profusely and trembling all over. Finally, the light pattern on the divine stone reached 29 circles. Woo! Zhang Ruoken withdrew his arm, let out a long breath, wiped the beads of sweat from his forehead, bowed to the deputy master of King Hua and Elder Yu Jingchan, and said, "The student has tried his best, but he can only reach the 29th order." When Zhang Ruoken raised his head, he found that Deputy Courtyard Master King Hua and Elder Yu Jingchan were staring at him like petrified, motionless, as if they had become sculptures. Zhang Ruoken looked at the students below again, and the expressions of those students were even more exaggerated than those of Deputy Courtyard Master King Hua and Elder Yu Jingchan, looking at him like a monster. Oops! Zhang Ruoken's heart secretly screamed that it was not good, and for the sake of 10 drops of semi-holy true liquid, he put himself into the pit. At this time, Zhang Ruoken saw a pair of calm eyes, and the owner of that pair of eyes was Luo Shuyan. Luo Shuyan nodded at Zhang Ruoken, showing a very appreciative look. Half a day later, Elder Yu Jingchan was the first to react from the shock and said, "Okay. There is a little guy who goes against this guy in the West Courtyard, and it seems that the quality of this year's freshman should be ranked first in the West Courtyard, not second. Haha." Elder King Hua also blushed, very pleased, and said, "Zhang Ruoken, don't worry, 10 drops of the half-saint true liquid will definitely apply for you." Prince Huoxing's face was filled with crazy jealousy, and in front of Zhang Ruoken, he was like a complete mediocre talent. What the hell is going on with those killers in the Daifu Gate? Why haven't they killed him yet? Prince Huoxing clenched his teeth. As long as he saw Zhang Ruoken, his heart was very angry. The deputy courtyard master of King Hua said, "It's been a lot of time to test your spiritual power, and now you can enter the Divine Power Hall to cultivate. Remember, you only have 1 hour, and you must cherish it." Next, 12 genius students entered the Divine Power Hall one after another. For the 4 freshmen, the cultivation in the Temple of Divine Power was full of mystery and unknown.